April was not my most prolific reading month ever, but it has been a pretty good one. However, thanks to a personal project that I'm currently undertaking, it was a little frustrating in my reading journal. You'll find out why. Hi, I'm Erin. Let's take a look at everything I read in April and get ready for some May reading. We're going to start off by updating some of the overall full year tracking pages at the very beginning of the journal, most specifically this one, which is just a list of all the books I've read. I typically like to fill out my reading journal in a few different sessions over the course of the month. That's just much more practical and approachable for me. And I actually did my very first session in my reading journal for the month of April on a live stream with my channel members, so you can do this in real time with me if you'd like to. You just need to join the channel on the Page Majors or the Jubilant Journals tiers, and then you'll have access to all of my members-only live streams. Then we'll flip over to my April dashboard spread, which is where I have my stats that I'll fill out at the end of the month. I have the book covers of all of the books that I have read at least part of over the course of April, and I have this cute little calendar that is a progress tracker for when I start and finish books throughout the course of the month. It's like a visual timeline of my reading that maps it across a calendar. Now, this is where things get tricky because right now I'm only using one pen for a month, and that's the one I'm using here, obviously. It's the Tom Studio Lumos Pro Duo. And it's essentially two pens in one, so I've got a fine liner in one end and at the moment a broad chisel nib in the other end. And that's all well and good if you don't want to change the colour that you're writing with, but if you do want to change the colour you're writing with, it can become a bit of a headache. And the way I like to fill out this calendar is that I use a few different colours representing different books so that the calendar looks like kind of fun and fits the theme at the end of the month. And so that means I need to change colours quite a bit, and that made this process quite long and drawn out. And if you were on the live stream with me, you'll know exactly how long and drawn out because you had to go through the whole process with me in real time. Essentially, the pen uses fountain pen inks, but not in the way that fountain pens use the inks. It uses them more in the way that a felt tip pen would use ink. So there was lots of referring to my fountain pen ink swatch book, there was lots of changing of reservoirs and tips, and there was a lot of ink on my fingers by the end of it as well, but we persevere. You can always tell the date that I was working on my reading journal because that's the date that all of my tracking goes up to here, so obviously it was the 19th when I was doing this. And the inks I've chosen from my small collection to match the colours of my April theme were the Coffee Monster Robert Oster collaboration colour because I was already using that for my May bullet journal. That's the brown ink. One of the greens is the Dominant Industry Fisherman at Sea, and the other one is Tom Studio's Mallard. I've penciled in some placeholders for book covers that I still needed to print, and I do have a video on how I do that in case you want to check it out. If you also own a Cricut, you might find it helpful. And we're moving on to the first of my book review spreads for this video, and this one is for The Glitch by Leeanne Slade. This one's a rom-com, so it felt really appropriate to use some of these little panels from two tapes from the Washi tape shop. One's called Cupid's Muse and the other one's called Heartstrings. Both of them feature couples in cute little situations, so I went with two that really fit the theme of the book. One there in a snowy street, and the other they're on a staircase in some beautiful autumn colours that match quite nicely with the book cover, convenient, and they seem to be going in opposite directions, which really fits this book because this one has a time slip theme and it's a second chance romance, so what could be more perfect? I personally really enjoy a rom-com with a paranormal or a time travel kind of a twist, so this was right up my alley. My friend Rachel read it before me and she got on really well with it, so of course I was going to give it a go. It's one of the Audible originals, so it's within the Audible Plus catalogue, if that's what it's called, so you don't have to pay to access it as long as you already have access to Audible. I tell you what, this is the second book I've read from this author, and the first one was just as strong, so I think I'm going to have to seek out some more stuff from Leeanne Slade because she's very, very good. Obviously, I did this one on audiobook because it is an Audible original, so that tends to be how that works. This book has dual points of view and also dual narrators, but what is it with Audible getting crazy all-star narrators to do their books lately? Because this one is narrated by Sam Claflin and Daisy Edgar Jones, and they are both phenomenal at it. To be totally honest, I'm not usually a fan of second chance romance, but this one did it so gracefully and so beautifully. Pardon the pun, the female main character's name is Grace, and she's been through it. She's having a rough time. She's having to close down her business. Her beloved grandmother is sick and suffering, and she has broken up with the love of her life after he did something quite terrible. She makes a wish in a moment of desperation and finds herself waking up 5 years in the past on the day that she met her ex, who has the other point of view in the story, and she gets to live everything again, but make new choices. This is one of those books that scores really high on heart for me on my Peach rating scale because it really does just kind of stay with you and you keep thinking about it for a while afterwards, or at least I did. I definitely recommend it if you enjoy a really well-written, really well-delivered audiobook rom-com, and if you're okay with a bit of spice, because there is a little bit of spice in this one. I had to switch my pen color again to put my lettering up the top there. I used the brush nib and I used the Pilot Suigyoku ink this time in case you are interested in inks. I thought it was a pretty decent match to the book cover. And I'm doing things a little bit out of order for this video because of the fact that I was live streaming this at the time I set it up. I've lately been keeping my Peach ratings in a notes app file in my phone so that I can rate books as soon as I finish them. I feel like that's a bit more of an accurate way to do it for me. So because I was setting this up on live stream and I was chatting with my channel members while I did it, I didn't actually go through and write the review sections of these pages until the next time I came back to my reading journal, because I can't really do that and be entertaining on a live stream at the same time. Like, I'd have to go completely quiet. So I thought we'll do the fun part together and then I'll do the part where I'm just writing later. So I have cut that part in here, so you'll see a little bit of a completed page on the facing side, so some continuity issues with this video, but I think it makes the most sense this way. So this is how I'm going to do it. I've scored the glitch a very respectable 4.1, which gives me a 4-star rating for this one, and I have also transferred that over onto my dashboard spread too, because I like to have my star ratings over there as well. As always, I will never give you spoilers in the voiceover for these videos, but there will be spoilers in my written text reviews, so don't read them if you don't want to have things spoiled. I also added some more stickers down the bottom there from a sticker book that I have to represent some other parts of the story. There's a window in a house there to represent the concept of home, which is quite important, and some food and some table setting stuff because our female main character is a chef. Onward to the second book review for this one. This is Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher, which was our Page Majors read for April. Thank you so much to Pam for suggesting this one. This is my second T. Kingfisher book, and I really do enjoy the tone that she has, where she does this kind of slightly horrific, slightly twisted fairy tale kind of thing, but makes it really approachable and somehow very warm-hearted. I definitely plan to read more from this author, although this one was a bit of a strange experience for me. I still have rated it kind of high because I did enjoy it and I didn't find it difficult to read or anything like that. I didn't struggle through personally, but it did feel like it was a few books in one. Like, the first chapter was quite dark and was setting up something that I thought was fairly apocalyptic, dystopian. Our main character is making a dog out of bones, and you don't really get the context at this point as to why she's doing that or who she really is. But once you start to get into her backstory, it turns out that she is a princess of a kingdom, and I was like, oh, okay, so when do we get to the part where the kingdom completely dies and there are, like, people eating people and stuff to survive? But it actually never goes there, and I was like, then what was that first chapter all about? I know for some of my Page Majors, which is my book club that I run through the channel membership program here on YouTube, I mentioned it earlier, the Page Majors is the top tier and that gets you access to my book club. We read a book every month together and then have a little call within the Discord server to discuss the book. There's a link in the description in case you're interested in finding out more, but I know some of my Page Majors were more interested in the book that first chapter alluded to than the book it actually became. And I think there are probably some who felt the opposite too and were happier that it went in a lighter direction after that, so your mileage may vary. Something that I really enjoy about both of the T. Kingfisher books that I've read so far is that they both feature older women in powerful roles, which is really exciting to see as someone who is approaching 40. Definitely looking forward to having some role models for my later years in the books that I'm reading. There's a character called the Dust Wife that I'm specifically really thinking of here, but also our protagonist Mara in this book is in her 30s too, which is also pretty refreshing to get in a medieval style fantasy kind of setup. Also, the fact that I think sold a lot of my book club members to vote for this book is the fact that it has a character that is a demon chicken, which is just as hilarious as it sounds, I guess. When we discuss the book on our little Discord calls, I always like to have some questions prepared so that everyone can have a think about what they want to contribute and maybe guide them through the setup process of their reading journal page. So I'm just adding those at the moment. I'm using Writer's Blood by Diamine in my pen because I already had one of my reservoirs inked up with that and I thought it would look alright with the theme of this page. And I've also used some stickers from 2 different sheets from Sticky here. As always, I will have as much of the stuff that I can linked for you in the description down below, but if it's things that I've had for a long time, sometimes they just go out of stock, so I'll do my best. I actually had some attention issues in April. I was finding it really difficult to just sit down and read a book with my eyeballs. So I started this one on ebook and I ended up switching to audio. I just find that's a little bit easier for me if I'm having trouble focusing on a book, because then I can do something else with my hands and it kind of forces me to focus, which is interesting. I also tried to allow enough space for the book cover in the top right there, and then totally forgot about it when writing my review and used up some of that space. So when I come back with the book cover, I'm unfortunately going to have to use a small one, which is not my convention, but it's okay. We're just going to deal with it this time. Let's carry on to my next review spread, and oh my goodness, what's going on? Erin read nonfiction. I'm actually just using this book cover for a book that I now am pretty certain I won't be reading as a placeholder, so I know how much room to allow for the book cover that I haven't printed yet. Please consider this a little coarse language warning if that's something that you prefer to avoid, because this book has a word in its title that maybe not everybody will appreciate, but it was a very interesting book, so please excuse my language for the next little while. This book is called Wordslut, and it's by Amanda Montell. If you'd prefer not to hear about it, you can use the chapters down in the scrolly bar to navigate your way later through the video, and you don't have to listen to me talk about this book. But if you are interested, let me tell you about this book. It's very interesting. The full title is actually Wordslut, A Feminist Guide to Taking Back the English Language, and it's all about the language that we use day to day and some of the sexism that is baked into it that we maybe don't always notice. It's also about the history of some of the swear words and the slang words that we use and where they really came from and what they have meant throughout time, because those things do change. And the language that we have absorbed into our everyday speech that maybe originally came from queer culture or AAVE as well. I'm generally just a big fan of Amanda Montell. I listen to her podcast, Sounds Like a Cult, and I have read her book, Cultish, The Language of Fanaticism, in the past. I am definitely keen to read her new book as well soon. So Amanda Montell, the author, is a linguist, but her past also contains some work in beauty media, and the first time I came across her, she was talking about this book, and also more broadly the language that is used in beauty marketing and that kind of thing too, on the Los Angeles podcast, which I used to listen to quite religiously. And I've been meaning to read this book for such a long time, so I'm glad I finally did. The thing that was quite weird about this for me is that I read this on audiobook, and I'm very used to Amanda's real voice. She narrated her own audiobook for Cultish, The Language of Fanaticism, but she did not narrate this one. In fact, it is the same narrator as the one who did Practical Magic, which I listened to last year and did not especially enjoy the narration from, so that was a bit weird for me. The narrator did a pretty good job of this one though. I kind of got used to it after a while, but I definitely would love to hear this one redone in Amanda's voice, since she has such an influential voice now anyway with her podcast and with her later books. Something I found really interesting setting up the page for this was that I found out this book was published in 2019, which doesn't feel that long ago, but some of the references made to the language of some politicians and things in this book actually feel really outdated now, because the world has changed so much since 2019, and this really made it obvious to me. But it was also really exciting to finally get a chance to use my Mitsu rating system in my journal, which is my nonfiction rating system. There's a link in the description about my rating system and how it works in case you want to check that out if you're not familiar. Obviously, nonfiction is a lot broader than fiction in the ways that you rate books, so I don't think the Mitsu system works for everything necessarily, but it worked really well for this book for me, so I ended up rating it 4.2, which I'm rounding up to 4.25 stars. We're now in April reading journal session number 2, so some time has passed since the initial setup that you already saw, and I have finished a whopping 1 more book. This is right at the end of the month and I only finished 1 more. To be fair, I went away for a week, so I wasn't reading very much while I was away from home, but I've got 1 book I also need to add to my DNF page, which is Do Your Worst by Rosie Danan. I got to 60% of this book, and I wasn't that invested anyway. It's one of those romance stories that's like bashing you over the head with the fact that it's a romance, and you're like, okay, I get it, you're hot for each other. But the female main character made a comment that was really disparaging about musicians, and I studied music at university and I was a songwriter, and I'm kind of really offended by it. So that was enough for me to just put the book down on the spot, unfortunately. A little bit of sunk cost fallacy maybe at play there, because I was like, Erin, you've made it to 60%, should you just finish it? But I really didn't want to go back after that, so I listened to my heart. We are going to do a review page for the last book that I did complete though, and unfortunately I don't have great things to say about this one either. Although I did finish it, it didn't piss me off to the point where I didn't want to finish the book. This book is Cruel is the Light by Sophie Clarke. I recently made a video reviewing a BookBox service, a subscription that is available here in Australia, and right after I finished the 3 months to test that out, I got an email from them saying that they were going to BookBox 3.0, that things were going to be changing, and so I subscribed for 1 more month just to see what the changes were, and then it turned out that they hadn't actually implemented them yet, so I didn't include this one in the review video because it wasn't really relevant, and I think it's changing from June. But I did read the book because it sounded really interesting, and I think it may have been like a pretty cool get for BookBox because it isn't technically out until May 20th, so I guess this is kind of like an advance copy. Also, Sophie Clarke is an Australian author, and so I really wanted to like this book, but it fell really flat for me. We've got 2 protagonists for this one, Leeanne, who is a young Vatican exorcist who is tasked with killing demons and exorcising them from the Holy Vatican, and Jules, who has been fighting in a indeterminate war. Honestly, I couldn't entirely pick up when this was supposed to be set. It was kind of unclear. He's an orphan and a soldier, and he's hot. And also really good at fighting demons, as it turns out. And their paths cross, and hijinks ensue and sparks fly, but there was just so much that this book left to be desired, or like just didn't explain very well. This is a debut novel for the author, and it is just not written very well at all. It's pretty unclear. It's written in the third person, but for some reason it alternates chapters as though it's a first-person book with a dual point of view, so I feel like maybe it was at some point and somebody has convinced her to change it, or I don't know, it was a really weird choice. Several times it throws you into a flashback with absolutely no warning. I did this one on ebook, so there was no like page break or anything to indicate that things were changing. It just threw you into a flashback. Lots of really big events I feel weren't described in enough detail to make them understandable, which is a shame. Like I got the gist of the overall story, but when I put the book down, I was like, what just happened? Also, I don't know if this one is supposed to be YA or not, but I do feel like both of the main characters are just too young for the lives that they've led and the skills that they have. Like, it doesn't make sense, honestly. All of this makes me really sad because the plot of this book is actually really good. It has so much merit. It was just not executed well at all, in my opinion. I don't think I will be picking up the sequel to this one. I just don't think it's worth it for me, unfortunately. You can see my ratings on the Peach scale there if you're interested, but it came out to 2.7, so I've rounded that up to 2 3/4 stars. And it took me all month to read, so it's possible I probably could have chosen to DNF this one, but I did pay for it with the BookBox, and there is a bit of a sunk cost fallacy thing going on for me there too, where I was like, I paid for this, and at the time I wasn't sure if I was going to include it in the review or not, so I was like, I've got to push through, I've got to read this book, it's for research, you know? I have started some other books, but I didn't finish them in the month, so I'm going to pop their covers on the spread here just to represent that they are indeed on the calendar, but they're not getting a star rating because they're not finished yet, so I don't know what that's going to be. Stay tuned for next month's reading journal video if you want to find out what I thought. Actually, one of them's a reread, so I kind of already know what I think of one of the books, but the other one is new to me, so make sure you come back for next month's reading journal video in case you want to find out. It's just a little teaser for you, a little sneak preview. Because it's so much harder to switch between the pen colors this month because of my little pen project that I've got going on, I'm actually going to fill out some of my reading stats now while I still have this color in the pen. This is the Dominant Industries one, and then we'll come back to the reading stats and fill out some more in a minute because I just have to make the most of while I have a particular color in the pen, you know. It is definitely making me really appreciate the ease of choosing a few markers that go with your theme and then just being able to switch pens. That is a lot faster than switching reservoirs or inking up a new one, but it is going pretty well, my little pen project. So there'll be a video about that coming later in the month. In case you're keen, keep an eye out for that one too. In the meantime, I'm just going to keep adding color to my pie charts here while I have different colors in the pen, and also finish up my progress calendar too. I thought I might also mention, in case you are keen to get in on some book club action, our book for May is The Book of Doors by Gareth Brown, and you have plenty of time to still read the book and join in the conversation if you're keen. So the books we read are suggested by the members of the Page Majors Book Club, and around about mid-month every month I'll check out the spreadsheet from our suggestion box. I'll choose 3 books that have been suggested and we vote for them in the Discord server. And we actually do this a month in advance, so we already have our June book chosen so that anyone who wants to try and source it through the library has some time to deal with holds and wait times and that kind of thing. And halfway through May, we will have the poll for our July book. I really enjoy the discussions we have around books, and especially the ones where we have really mixed feelings. I think they're always my favourites. My library hold for the Book of Doors actually came in today, the day that I am recording this voiceover, so I'm ready to get stuck into that one. That's all my pen switching sorted out for now, so we can jump into my reading stats for the month of April. I read 4 books in April, which is less than I typically achieve, but I am actually completely okay with it. I had an average rating of 3.63, which I think would have been higher, but Cruel is the Light really dragged that average down. I came in at 864 pages read and 20.52 hours listened, and on average it took me 15 days to finish a book. Half the books I read were 300 to 499 pages long, the other half were less than 300 pages. Half the books I read were from the library, a whopping 2 of them, and the other 2 I bought. Finally, I get to use the pie chart for fiction and non-fiction. I read 25% non-fiction this month, 1 book, and 75% fiction. And it was a 50-50 split between audio and ebook for me this month, although I do have a paperback copy of Cruel is the Light because of the book box. I read it on ebook anyway, because I like that better. My genres in April covered fantasy, sociology, feminism, young adult, romance, and contemporary. That's a wrap on April, so let's start thinking about May. I'm so sorry this is out of focus. I didn't check. I set my camera to manual focus, or I try to remember to, but I didn't remember to focus it before I hit record, which is a bit of a rookie error. Sorry about that. The layout for my May dashboard is pretty much the same as what I did in April, but I am approaching it a little bit differently because I was so sick of changing pen colors, and this is also going to be mostly green themed, so I could have just used one of the ones that I've already set up, but I thought let's make my life really easy and use some stickers that I make myself. So I'm theming my May setup around plants and flowers, and the reason for that will be really obvious in a minute, but I'm going to add this beautiful hanging flower PET tape that's going across the top of the spread here. This one's from Cora Crea Crafts. I really like the design on this one because it's got a lot of color, it's got a lot of interest and texture to it, but it's also not super heavy as far as visual weight. Like, it takes up some decent room without feeling like it's weighing your spread down, which I really like. Also, logically, because they're hanging, I feel like they should be suspended from a roof, right? So they make the most sense to me at the top of a spread. I'm also using a green grid pattern washi tape as a bit of a solid accent around the place. This one's kind of a light aqua-y kind of a green, and that's going to give me some nice solid pops of color and also an anchor to attach some other stickers to. So the other stickers I'm using here are from a few different sets from JOURNALSAY that I've had for a little while. I just thought I would kind of combine them all and make something very leafy. Obviously, I need quite a bit of the space on this setup to be very functional. I need lots of room for book covers over on the right side and room to add my reading stats on the left, so I like to try to keep my decoration for this spread to the outsides, mostly to the corners, but also the top and bottom, so I've still got lots of room to work. I went ahead and made heading stickers for each of my reading stats so I could just stick those down straight onto the page, but I also made these little circle stickers that I'm going to use for my pie charts this time that are actually a really soft grey rather than just white. This is such an easy way to make them exactly the same size without having to draw circles on the spread. Love that hack. You can probably tell from my April dashboard spread that usually I would hand letter those things, but I really was just at a point where I didn't want to use that pen anymore to try and, change colors and things. I just didn't want to think about it, so this was my little workaround. And it also meant I could put those headings over the top of some of the existing decoration I've already laid down, so I'm really maximizing my use of space here. You've already seen these 2 book covers on the previous dashboard, but I haven't finished these 2 yet, so these are the ones that are continuing, they're ongoing. The first 2 books probably that I'll finish in the month of May. One is If I Never Met You by Vari McFarlane, truly one of my favourite romance authors of all time. This one I had already read way back, 2021 maybe, and I'm rereading it for a special project. And the other is A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Brigid Kemmerer. So if you remember me ranting and raving about forging silver into stars in my March reading journal video, this is the first book in the Cursebreaker series, which is the series that precedes the Forging Silver into Stars series. So I'm going back to the start and I'm really enjoying it so far, honestly. Haven't finished it, I'm only like 20% in, but definitely having a good time. Also using stamps to letter my May heading because I'm once again avoiding pens wherever possible for this one. I was just so burned out. Those letter stamps also have some little leaves on them though, which makes them super appropriate for this theme. Those ones are from JOURNALSAY. And usually with the dashboard spread set up we'd be finished, but we're going to do one more spread this time because I want to have a whole dedicated spread for the Goober Readathon. This is a May reading challenge hosted by the Bujo Buddies Book Club, which is run by Jashi Corinne and her friends Rachel and Monica. And it's a little bit more involved than last year's Goober Readathon. I have printed out the instructions and the categories and stuff for myself so that I have a reference in my journal because I honestly think a lot of it will probably slide off my brain, so it's good to have somewhere to check what I'm doing. But this is where the plant theme comes in because the theme of the Goober Readathon is that Ghosty Goober, their little mascot, is learning about different plant types, and by completing the reading challenge chronologically, you help to deepen the little ghostie's studies about plants. It's a really fun way to gamify a reading challenge. It's so cute. I printed a little Ghosty Goober sticker to go on the spread too, along with the rules. And all the space I'm leaving open on the right page is where I'm going to be tracking which books applied to which prompts. To be totally honest with you, I'm taking it pretty casually. I'm not really seeking out specific books to fit the prompts. I'm just going to kind of retroactively apply whatever I do read to the prompts and see where I end up, but it's a bit of fun. And I've linked Jess's explainer video down in the description too. And that's actually the reading journal all done for this month. Thank you so much for coming along with me. I hope you got some book recommendations out of this. Definitely let me know in the comments down below what your top read of the month of April was. I'm always keen to get recommendations from you, but I'm also really interested, did you read anything disappointing in April? Because I want to hear about that too. All the best for the Goober Readathon. If you're taking part, I hope you have a wonderful time. And I really hope you discover a new favourite book in May. That's my wish for you. If you're keen to keep watching and keep talking about books with me, here is a link to my playlist of reading journal videos from 2025 so far. And underneath that is a link to a video YouTube thinks you'll enjoy. Happy reading!